New bombshell evidence just released recently on the Kilmar Abrego Garcia incident has the internet going crazy, and I'm going to cover that evidence right here on American Advocates. Is this the final nail in the coffin for Kilmar Abrego Garcia? If you ask mainstream media and Democrats, President Donald Trump is disappearing loving fathers out of this nation and throwing them into CCOT prison.
We do not disappear people in the United States, because here's the thing. If they can disappear Mr. Abrego Garcia, then they can disappear you.
And do you want...
If you ask Republicans and the Trump administration, President Trump is removing MS-13 gang terrorists out of this nation and making America safe again.
Here's an individual, the man who has been deported to his home country of El Salvador, who has been repeatedly documented by multiple federal and state authorities to be a member of MS-13, one of the most violent and ruthless criminal organizations on planet Earth.
And as we all know, Senator Chris Van Hollen is none too thrilled about this.
Now we need to end the illegal abduction of Kilmar Abrego Garcia and bring him home too.
On this channel, I've gone through the trouble in another prior video of showcasing all of the documented evidence against Kilmar Abrego Garcia, including evidence for things like his criminal record, where I have shown multiple official government documents showcasing his extensive criminal history in America. I've also gone through the trouble of digging up and showing Kilmar Abrego Garcia's wife making a statement against him when it came to domestic violence and abuse, a sworn signed statement from his wife, stating that he was physically abusive towards her. And for the first time ever, I'm showing this document as well, though this is not the breaking news, but this is another document I found straight from the Department of Homeland Security, documenting an incident where he was pulled over for speeding in Tennessee in a truck full of 8 people, claiming that he was a construction worker. When all 8 people in the truck were asked where they lived, they all gave the same address, and it was Kilmar's address. And that's the document that points to the fact that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is a suspected human trafficker as well as a documented wife beater and criminal. But it gets even better than that, because breaking just recently, there is now audio evidence released on the internet from Kilmar's wife herself, where she gives a testimony accounting for his domestic abuse. Take a listen.
I came to fill out a protective order. I think it was in December. But I didn't show up to the court because his family washed my brain telling me that his dad was sick and not to do it. So I didn't do anything. But after that, it was I would call the police. I have a lot of police reports, and I kept trying to get to the door basement to try to open the door, and then he pushed me. So then when I was able to go outside to get a phone, I called 911 from a disconnected phone. Now they took a long time to get to the house. It was probably 20-30 minutes. So I saw a neighbor walking his dog, and I opened the door and I was like, help. And then when he heard me, he grabbed me from my hair and then he slapped me. And then the neighbor, he didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to react. I have pictures of the evidence, all the bruises, because even on Wednesday, he hit me around 3 in the morning. He would just wake up and hit me. And then last Saturday for my daughter's birthday party, before I went to my daughter's birthday party, he slapped me 3 times. And then last week I did call the police. My sister called the police because he hit me in front of my sister.
Now remember, the Democrat Party, for some reason, loves this guy. They have championed him as a prime example of gross overreach from the Trump administration. They are hailing him as a loving Maryland father who did no wrong and was living peacefully, and then was one day pulled over, arrested, and disappeared out of this country into CCOT prison. However, it doesn't seem like anything could be further from the truth. There's so much evidence to point to the fact that this man was a criminal, a gang member, and yes, even his tattoos point to that. Because you see, the Democrats have been going crazy over Trump holding up this photo of his knuckle tattoos, claiming, oh my God, that's Photoshopped. The MS-13's not tattooed on his hands. I can't state this enough. Of course, the MS-13 letters and numbers aren't actually tattooed on his hands. That's called evidence. They wrote that on the photo to show you what each tattoo on each knuckle represents. The M, the S, the 1, and the 3. There's plenty of proof about this, documented proof about what these tattoos mean. He is almost undeniably an MS-13 gang terrorist. And by the way, Kilmar's wife knows what his hand tattoos mean. That's why in the photograph, she literally goes to the trouble of hiding his knuckle tattoos with heart emojis. And as Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said, these are terrorists. So the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 completely applies to them. They are enemies within the country and they are rightfully being deported. And that does mean without a court hearing. In fact, when it came to Obama's presidency, he deported over 3 million illegal immigrants out of America. And out of those 3 million, 83% of them did not receive a single court hearing either. This is how deportations have always worked. Why do they need a court hearing? They're here illegally. And in cases like Kilmar's, he has a documented lengthy criminal history and has also admitted himself to crossing the border illegally, coming up from El Salvador. What more can you ask for? Goodbye. Now, the way that this whole scenario has ended, basically, may not be satisfactory to somebody like Senator Chris Van Hollen, who is content to go on a vacation down to El Salvador on presumably taxpayer dollars and have a few drinks with this wife-beating MS-13 gang member outside of his lavish hotel room. But the fact of the matter remains as this: the contrast between what the American public and American people want compared to what the Democrat agenda is shines bright when it comes to this Kilmar Abrego Garcia controversy. 56% of Americans are in favor of deporting every single illegal immigrant out of America. Meanwhile, the Democrats, as usual, choose the worst hill to die on when it comes to him, and they can't let it go. During Trump's 100-day cabinet meeting, press reporters, the first question asked by press was to Secretary of State Marco Rubio when it came to them asking him for an update on the El Salvador Kilmar incident. And Marco Rubio answered it flawlessly.
Brought up El Salvador in your remarks. Have you been in touch with El Salvador about returning Abrego Garcia? Has a formal request from this administration been made?
Well, I would never tell you that. And you know who else I'll never tell? A judge. Because the conduct of our foreign policy belongs to the President of the United States and the executive branch, not some judge. So we will conduct foreign policy appropriately if we need to, but I'll never discuss it. And no one will ever make us discuss it because that's how foreign policy works.
Now I'm aware, at least for a small minority of this country when it comes to Democrat liberal voters, nothing you put out there is going to be proof enough, evidence enough, or good enough to satisfy proving their opinion wrong on this whole incident. Some of them will die on the sword just like their liberal party will, going to their grave insisting that this was a loving Maryland father, he has a shaky history, none of that matters, he was deported wrongfully. But at the end of the day, all that really matters is what the majority of America wants, because that's what politicians are elected to represent. The majority. Kilmar Abrego Garcia has been deported. He is in El Salvador, and he is never coming back. End of story.